Hello and welcome back to the Saints Squad Show. I'm your host, Dylan Sanders of Pelicans Roundtable and Saints Wire. And no, I did not get traded away at the trade deadline.
I'm Darian Gray of Who Dat Dish, and here's a live look at what the Saints got for Trevor Penning.
This is former Saints receiver Lance Moore, and as you can see, I traded in my house for a hotel room in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
It's the Saints Squad. Everything New Orleans Saints, every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from down in the Big Easy, the way only Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Saints Squad Show, starting now.
Howdy, United Nation, and welcome back to the Saints Squad Show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making us your first listen every Sunday and Wednesday. We have a unique group of experts here ready to bring you a fun and informative show on everything New Orleans Saints. Today, we're going to be diving into the trade deadline. The Saints didn't do a ton of moves, but I think there's a lot to take away from the couple of moves that they did make. We're going to talk about the Rasheed Shaheed trade. We're going to talk about what that means for him, what it means for the rest of the team. Like Tyler Shaw, Chris Olave, Devon Vele are some names we're going to bring up. Then we're going to go into Trevor Penning, getting traded. We're going to talk about him, maybe some moves that didn't happen that we thought would happen. And then, of course, there is a game this weekend, though nobody really cares about those anymore. And we're going to talk game picks and bold predictions for that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. All right, let's dive into what I think is the biggest news of the week. It is the Rasheed Shaheed trade. A line in the sand was drawn. We talked about which receiver do they move, and with Rasheed Shaheed's expiring contract and Chris Olave down for another year, they decided to move Shaheed for a fourth and a fifth this year. Let's start off with Lance. Your immediate reaction to that trade, and do you think they got enough?
I wasn't surprised. I figured that they would move at least one of the two, him or Chris Olave. And I honestly, I don't know that Mickey will ever come out and say it, but I'm curious to know if they tried to trade Chris Olave and they just didn't get the offers for a return back to which they thought that they deserved, right? Like that to me is some important context here. Or was the plan all the whole time, we're going to trade Rasheed Shaheed? A fourth and a fifth round pick back for a guy who was not drafted, I would say is a good return. I think he's very, very valuable to a team like Seattle that is lacking that type of legit vertical threat. You couple that with the things that he's able to do in the return game. Like he really makes Seattle. I'm happy for him, honestly. Like I hate to see him go because I've always been a big Rasheed Shaheed fan. I'm always a fan of the undrafted guys that make teams and then end up making an impact. He went from undrafted to a Pro Bowl player. So wearing the black and gold, I feel like was a great fit for him, but he's now on to potentially brighter pastures. I'm happy for him because of the situation he's in. I'm disappointed, honestly, that it was him, because I feel like they could have gotten him back after this season had they traded Chris Olave. Now, I'm not saying that to say that I wanted them to trade Chris Olave over Shaheed. I just think their situations are two totally different situations. There is another year under contract for Chris Olave, and Shaheed is going to be a free agent. So I understand the logic behind them saying, hey, this guy's going to be a free agent. Let's get something back in return for him right now to make sure that we get something. But I'm curious to know, and I guess only time will tell, if Olave will still be traded or if they're going to end up extending him. I mean, I think initial reaction, kind of surprised, but not surprised. Happy for him, Shaheed, to move on. And then it brought up more questions. Why was he traded and not Olave? Okay, now that he's traded, what is the plan for Olave moving forward? Like those are kind of the things that have been on my mind. But At least we did something, I guess.
Yeah. Darian.
I'm gonna say this. I like the compensation. 4 and a 5, good for me. I didn't think that they would get the third that we initially heard that they were looking for. I thought maybe a 4. And then when Myers got traded for a 4th and another pick, I think you kind of had the feeling that Shaheed was going to get 4th and another pick. We never feel concrete with knowing the history and how trades have gone for the Saints, but I think we had a feeling that's what should have been the compensation. So good on the comp. Now let me take it one step further than Lance did. I did want them to trade Chris Olave before they traded Rasheed Shaheed. Like I will say that because of where I view the team, where I view his situation being Olave. I think the conversation around Olave becomes, because I've seen people say, all right, you trade Olave, you don't have a number 1 receiver. You can make an argument that you still don't have a number 1 receiver with him here. So now are we going to pay somebody who is not quite what I feel like a number 1 should be? Or are we going to trade him away and get assets and try to figure it out in the future? That's what I think the conversation around Olave is. And I know we're talking about Shaheed right now, but the conversation about whether or not you trade Olave, which Lance brought up a great point, there's still time. It's still the next year's trade deadline. It's still the upcoming draft. I think he's still a guy who, if the two sides don't find a middle ground early enough, could be dealt at a later time. But when it comes to Olave, the question is, all right, do we try to make it work here? Is it worth it? Or do we try to get assets? The future of his development versus the potential future of a younger player development. Think of Jordan Tyson in the first round, depending on how everything falls out. So when Lance was talking about the Olave and what goes on there, that's my side of it. When it comes to Shaheed specifically, again, I like the trade for him. I think it trades him to a good team somewhere where he's probably going to be comfortable. I could see him coming in immediately and being an impact player because of his familiarity with Clint Kubiak. I like the success you give him to a good team. He gets to be in a better situation. He's done a lot for the team. We talk about taking care of guys. I think they took care of him in this trade, and I think it was fair compensation. So all around, I give a thumbs up.
Well, and I think another thing. Sorry, Dylan. Like
You're good.
When guys get traded, they don't get to pick who they get traded to, right? Mm-hmm. So like being able to be traded to a team, not just a team that's playing well and has playoff aspirations, but an organization that is historically run the right way, that has bright people in place from the top down, right? John Schneider is one of the best general managers in all of football. Like he's going to a great situation. It's not really trying to poo-poo on anybody, but like it's not like he got traded to the Browns, right? Like it's he went to a place where I would think, is going to have an immense amount of success the rest of the season and potentially could get signed to an extension there, which will be great news for a guy that will be looking for an extension regardless of where he's playing.
Yeah. I was going to say this. I do think that this signals to me, with the extension talks already happening, unable to make a trade, I would be shocked if Chris Olave does not receive an extension. And it's probably going to be a lot of money, and I'm going to be really interested to see what Shaheed gets this offseason compared to what Olave gets, because I really don't know if it's going to be that different, depending on how he closes out this year with Seattle. But overall, also, in terms of, actually, go ahead, Darren.
Well, it's going to be different. It's going to be different.
Yeah,
I want to say that.
Jackson Smith and Jigba is their hands down number 1 guy. So there's no chance that they're going to pay Shaheed like a number 1 guy. And if Olave is willing to accept an extension in New Orleans, I would imagine they have to pay him like a number 1 guy. Or else he would say, okay, I'm going to play this 5th year out. Franchise me if you have to, but I'm not signing that extension. I can go get that money elsewhere. I just don't see that money. I don't see it being, I'm talking like potentially, tens of millions of dollars, $10 to $15 million difference per year, potentially between the two contracts, just based on what one would call one versus the other, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, whatever you want to call them. Sorry, Derek.
No, you're good. I'll say that because I think that's actually really interesting. The gap, I never thought of being like 10 to 15, but I'll say this when it comes to Olave. When it comes to Olave and how much you're willing to pay him, that also Depends on how I react to the extension. I'm not opposed. And I think sometimes this gets lost in people defending. Sports is just so divisive, right? It's so unifying, but it's so divisive at the same time. Like, I don't think people like, no way Olave is on the team. I think people have an expectation on what Olave staying around would cost. If it comes in at a certain figure, I'm probably not that upset with it. I don't think he's a bad player. I don't think that he just needs to get off my team. There's players on this squad who you could say that about. I don't think that's Olave. I just think the money that he's going to ask for, and like Lance says, he'll say, no, I can go find that elsewhere. That's a little high for me, but you can always trade him in next year's trade deadline. And now we're not having this conversation. You could trade him at the draft, like I said, if you want to get some draft capital right around the time of April. But I don't think that until we hear about the extension, not just talks of it, but until we hear about the extension being signed, I know that November 4th is passed, but the deadline has not passed on trading Chris Olave. It's just been delayed, in my opinion.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to touch on with this trade is, I'll throw this out there. I think I prefer this team getting a 4th and a 5th over a 3rd, just because you get more bodies, you get more shots, you get more rookies, you get more young players on cheap contracts. Obviously, the value of a 3rd, like you're going to, you have a higher chance of getting a better player. But right now, this team is not a 3rd-round player away from a championship. They are many players across many different positions. They need as many assets and as many shots as you can. And I like the idea of having 2 more shots on day 3 as opposed to earlier in day 3, as opposed to having 1 more shot, 30 picks higher than you are in that 4th-round pick. I'm not opposed to it at all. I think I like the return more than just getting the 1/3 round.
Well, I mean, I just think it in terms of value at that spot, it is worth more if you're packaging picks, right? Like, okay, we've got an extra 1st, we've got a 3rd, we're gonna put this 3rd in, like, sure. But I like your logic. A lot of times a 3rd-round pick is a heavy contributor day 1, sometimes a starter. 4th and 5th-round picks usually are contributors to some level, maybe not the same extent of a 3rd-round pick. And this is just the most general way of breaking it down. But I do like the idea of having more young bodies in, or having more picks to package to try to move up or down or whatever you're trying to do to help build for the future. So I like your logic on that.
Yeah, I can't argue. I think I prefer the top 100 a little bit, right? I think maybe that's just the glitz and glamour, hoping for instant impact of it. But both of you bring up great points. Either you get a 4 and a 5 and you need more bodies. Like, this team is not one player away, just the same way that Dylan said. You need more bodies, or you need more capital to be able to package together and push up. So I don't think that there is a bad way. I think it's a way of thought that I hadn't really thought about, but it's a really good point that you present, Dylan, because you do get 2 players, or you get to trade capital. All of those things come into play.
Yeah, it is. It's just, I don't know. I'm interested to see the way that the team is running things. Obviously, the priority this year was expiring contracts, guys that weren't going to be around next year. It doesn't seem to be. I think him being moved signals that they just weren't going to bring him back, or could not agree on a price in earlier conversations, and didn't see that happening. And now Rasheed Shaheed gets to be a household name in a great offense next to Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think it's going to be really fun to watch. I was a huge fan of him here. Obviously, it's a really fun player, but now you get to see him do what he does on a bigger level and compete for this year, and it's going to be really fun. I think he really could have a monster close to this season in that offense, because who else was? It's the old Cooper Kupp retirement tour, Cooper Kupp and Jake Bobo competing for Torrey Horton as well has also broken out. But yeah, Shaheed's going to be eating in that offense.
And let me say one thing that stuck out to me, and I didn't mention it on the postgame. I wish I did. Shaheed hadn't taken a kickoff return all year, and he took 6 of them in the last game, and it just stuck out to me like, why are they doing it? I couldn't put my finger on if they were just trying something new, or if that was a sign of maybe a deal was on the way. But it did pique my interest, and it just, the eye emoji, right? Just eyes got big for a second, and I went away. It does feel like that's a role, whether it's punt return or kick return. You're gonna start seeing more bodies, specifically punt return.
Yeah. Well, let's keep this conversation. Oh, do you have something, Lance?
No, I was just gonna say if there was a trade in the works, they would not have put him back there for sure.
Okay.
Because the last thing that they want is to put him in harm's way, and then all of a sudden there's no trade, right? If he gets hurt.
That's fair.
So
no, that's 100% fair.
I think they were just a team that's desperate to win and try to get one of their playmakers some more touches. That would just be my guess.
Yeah. Well, let's keep this conversation going. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about, Tyler Shuck has a tougher job now without the weapons. Devon Vele needs to show why the Saints traded for him. Like, it's going to be interesting to see. Let's talk about the ripple effects of this trade coming up next. The NFL and NBA seasons are fully underway. This is my favorite time of year. There's always sports on, high leverage, fun to watch. And there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. So I took a look ahead at this Panthers game, and I put together a parlay that I think I like, and I might get in on. It's Tyler Shuck over 180.5 passing yards and a Rico Dowdle anytime touchdown, which I think is almost guaranteed to happen against this Saints defense. It's going to be interesting to watch. But right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Let's get in on the action. $5 bets, $300 in bonus bets if it wins. All right. I want to talk about what it means for Tyler Shuck this year. Mm-hmm. They're making his job harder, and it was already a tough thing. But now it also gives him the opportunity, if he comes out and performs well without, Rasheed Shaheed, with a weakened offensive line, what does that mean going into this draft?
I mean, probably means you're looking at edge rusher. I'll be honest with you. If he comes out and he looks good with everything working against him, essentially, it's funny because we've seen Spencer Rattler in this situation last year. He was at a different degree, but we saw a similar situation for Spencer Rattler last year where he had less weapons than you would like for evaluation. And a lot of people clamored, hey, that wasn't a fair evaluation. It wasn't a fair evaluation. Another precedent we've had this year on this specific show is throwing fair out the window because we understand that's not how it works. So Shuck will have a chance to work with what he has. Hopefully he develops a connection with Olave, Vele. We'll get into some more players. So I don't want to just unveil the whole list, but if you can start making a connection and start putting together a competent offense, that may really speak volumes to the coaching staff. And if you win a couple of games, they'll say, okay, maybe we don't need to rush into something. Maybe we don't need to draft the third quarterback on the board because we found ourselves in the number 4 pick. So I think that this is going to be a pivotal stretch, and this is just another obstacle, another box that he gets to check and jump over.
Yeah, I wonder if this now allows Olave to jump back into the vertical receiver role.
Has to.
Right? Like this. No, I mean, I know like we've got Cooks and Tipton and like other guys that can run, but I felt that not necessarily he's playing a role that he can't play, but I think maybe they haven't allowed him to do what I think is probably the best part of his game, right? Is stretching the field and catching those deep balls. I mean, like we saw him do so much the first couple of years of his career. We just have not seen that. And that's not because he can't do it anymore. That's because we had another weapon that could stretch the field and they needed somebody to kind of work the short and intermediate levels. For Tyler Shuck, if I'm him, I don't know that I love it, right? Like you're taking away one of my weapons. You know what I mean? But I think in a funny way, it kind of takes a little bit of pressure off of him now. Okay, he lost one of his weapons. Like that almost kind of gives him a little bit of a built-in excuse. Oh, he's working with, the cupboard half half full now. Like it's just not the same as it was last week. In his first start, he had a full set of guys out there. But it's not like we've been world beaters as far as the passing game goes this season anyway. So I think, could it potentially make it harder for him losing, one of his top receivers and a starting offensive lineman? Yeah, absolutely. It can make it harder for him. But guess what? It's the NFL. So you got to show up to work every day, regardless of who's lining up in the huddle, who's lining up in front of you, who's lining up outside. You have to go out and execute your job to the best of your ability. And nobody outside of this show maybe is going to make excuses for him. Hopefully they're not making excuses for him in that building. You know what I mean? Like it's he's the starting quarterback. Like this is the hand that you're dealt now after the trade. So let's go make lemonade out of lemons. Let's see if we can do it.
I wanted to add,
no, please. I think we've jumped on you enough.
I was just gonna say I wanted to ask you, Lance, real quick, because while the offense is gonna look different, obviously you take the talent of Shaheed away. You do have a little bit more of a diverse group of options with Devon Vele being out there. He's the bigger body. You finally give Devon Vele out there. You have Shaheed with that. You have Cooks. Could this still benefit the offense to have more looks, more different types of looks out there?
100%. I mean, you said it right there, like kind of diversifying what you're doing from the receiver position, having guys that can do a bunch of different things as opposed to having 3 or 4 guys who all do the same thing, right? And we are assuming now that Devon Vele is going to be getting more reps because Shaheed is gone. I mean, he should. I mean, but we traded a 4th-round pick for him. So if he's not playing, then what is really going on behind the scenes? But I do think that it makes it harder on a defense when you have guys with different skill sets out there, changing personnel groupings, moving guys around. So a guy that usually lines up on the outside can line up on the inside and vice versa, like doing things to keep the defenses off balance and you add in the fact that Devon Vele is a lot bigger than all the other receivers. So now you've got a big target, 6'5", 200+ target out there who can make those tough in-traffic catches, and which is something that this offense has needed big time this season because there hasn't been a ton of those, work out for us. So, I think you're right. I think you're spot on, and I think the diversity will add a new wrinkle, hopefully, to this offense, and it should be better overall. I'm not going to say there's going to be more big plays because we know that was Rasheed's thing, but I think having that versatility with the weapons on offense, I think it could help this offense be better.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what all it looks like. Darian, I want to ask you, who do you think the biggest winner of this Rasheed Shaheed trade is? It could be Shaheed being out of here, but who do you think it is? Yeah.
Let's talk about the biggest winners that still reside in New Orleans, because you are right. I think he is the biggest winner of this trade. And that's why Lance talked about how happy he was for him, because we all are. But when it comes to this, I would like for it to be 2 players. So I'm going to cheat. I think Vele has to come into play. He has to. I understand he's not going to play the same role that Shaheed played, but he should step up in the pecking order. And quite frankly, I'm tired of not seeing him on the field. I would like to be able to evaluate him. We've seen other players make their mistakes. We've seen them make their plays. It feels like with Vele, we just haven't seen much of anything. The evaluation still feels incomplete. And that's one of the biggest reasons that people are never going to really accept the compensation. People felt it was an overpay at the time. Not seeing him for half of the season makes it feel like an even greater overpay as we sit here today. Right. So I would like to see him step in. I think there should be a role for him. And I don't think that Shaheed should have had to get traded to find this role, but I hope that they become a little bit more proactive in finding this role. And then the second player that I will go to is Mason Tipton, somebody else we haven't seen that much. He hasn't been on the field. I think with Tyler Shuck and the tendency for him to go deep, you want to get somebody who is going to stretch the field. If it's not going to be Chris Olave, who has clamored to be a 3-level threat since the beginning of the season, if it's not going to be him, I think that Mason Tipton, a young guy, could develop into that we're going to just stretch the field with you type of receiver. And I think you need it. I think you need it because you need chunk plays and you have a quarterback who's going to want to go deep. So who is he going to go deep to? And that's just questions that need to be answered. So give me two younger-ish players. I know Vele's a little bit older, but he's, new to the league. Two younger players to step into bigger roles now that one guy is out the door.
I got one for you. Chris Olave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would love it.
It's got to be Chris Olave because I agree with you on the other two guys as well, but I think that Kellen Moore was trying so hard to find specific roles for guys, and he ignored the fact that Chris Olave does stretch the field so well. I think now he's going to take on more of that role, and I think that Devon Vele will actually take on more of the old role that Chris Olave was playing as the shorter, intermediate kind of route running guy. Being able to get in there, mix it up, and use his body to get open, and hopefully be able to be the guy that's making those catches and moving the chains the way that we need on a consistent basis from a player.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
Let me ask. I want to ask this. So I don't like how this sounds. So forgive me for the wording. I don't like how it sounds. But in a way, it kind of sounds like you're saying the presence of Shaheed limited the route tree of Olave, or maybe what the things that Kellen tried to ask him to do. I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I'm trying to ask you.
Maybe not limited, but I would say the downfield shots, if we looked it up, I would say they probably leaned heavy to Rasheed.
Probably so, yeah.
And so with him gone, who's going to get those, the lion's share of those shots? I would imagine it's going to be Chris Olave. I don't think Shaheed leaves and now all of a sudden they're throwing the ball downfield to Mason Tipton. Even though we've seen him do it, right?
Yeah.
Like he's got the ability, but I think those balls now belong to Chris Olave, and they should.
Yeah.
So do you think it stays as a three? I feel like it was largely a three-man rotation with Pepper in of a fourth. Do you think that stays the case? Or do you think it becomes more of a wide? So basically, it was Olave, Shaheed, Cooks, and then you throw in some Vele. It felt like. Do you think it becomes Olave, Cooks, Vele, and throw in a little Tipton, or you think Tipton, or they start using four receivers on a frequent basis in New Orleans?
I think we're going to see four receivers, but I honestly think Vele and Cooks are going to be flipped. I think Vele is going to end up being that kind of number two guy. And I mean, we got to remember Cooks is, what is he, year 13 now? I don't know that they want him in that heavy role necessarily. And again, traded a 4th round pick for Vele. Like it's about time now to start working, So I mean, and this is all guesstimations, right? Like we are 100% hypothesizing here. I think Olave is going to continue in his role, but add on the deep shots. I think Vele is going to step into that secondary role, move the chains, big physical, red zone, third down. I think Brandon Cooks is going to be the guy that's getting spot reps as far as balls concerned, 2 to 3 a game. And it doesn't look like they're throwing him the ball downfield at all. Maybe that changes with Rasheed Shaheed gone. Now I see Mason Tipton being the extra guy. Here's a couple run plays we're going to put you in on. Here's maybe a trick play. Here's one downfield shot that you could get, but you're not the primary target. That's just what I would envision. And look, I'm not the offensive coordinator, so I don't know. But I think that's how it's going to go. And honestly, I think that's how it should go. Because Devon Vele needs to be evaluated just like everybody else does. And if you're not putting him in a role, at this point, he should know the offense like the back of his hand. It's the NFL. So it's not like he's trying to play catch up at this point. He knows what's going on. Now it's time to get him out there and allow him to do his thing.
Yeah, because you do need, we talk about as much as you need to evaluate Tyler Shuck, because you need to know if you need a quarterback in the next draft. But you also need to know what your wide receivers are, because you have right now, it is Devon Vele, it is Chris Olave, and I think people forget, Jalen Polk. They already made another move for another wide receiver in Jalen Polk. So you could have a 3-man wide receiver room next year if you feel good about it. But if Devon Vele
Palmer
can't,
too.
the Trey Palmer,
I think Trey Palmer is a
like
guy who could come in if he ever gets off of IR and be a
Mhm.
field stretcher. Like, I think he could come in and do that. I just didn't mention him because I don't know what his injury situation is right now.
Yeah, there was so much speed, and there still is a lot of speed without Rashid Shaheed. So, and now you have the quarterback with the arm that doesn't have to put everything he has into it to get it downfield. You should be able to, I think, more consistently get the deep passing game going with Tyler Shuck. And Rasheed Shaheed being on doesn't change that at all for me.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about the other trade that happened coming up next because, it wasn't just Shaheed. There was another trade and another player that we saw his tenure end, an experiment I think we can classify as failed. This episode is brought to you by BILT. Nobody likes paying rent. I mean, it's actually probably the number one thing that people hate doing. But if you must, you might as well get something for it. That's where BILT comes in. BILT is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards that you can actually use. When you pay your rent through BILT, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels and airlines, maybe a future rent payment, your next Lyft or Uber, and more. But BILT isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding your entire neighborhood. All these small businesses, you go around and you're rewarded for shopping local. BILT has made everyday life feel more rewarding, from your neighborhood to your travel plans. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl. Make sure you use that link so they know we sent you. All right. The New Orleans Saints have officially closed the book on the Trevor Penning experiment. It was a failure. And as Darian mentioned earlier, they got nothing for it. A 2027 sixth round pick. It hurts. I want to start the talk because, we know what happened with Trevor. He wasn't good. They tried to move him to guard, see if that worked. It didn't work out. What I'm really interested about is the return. You only get a sixth round pick for a team that needed guard help. There's not a lot of guard help. I feel like even still, he was going to get paid this offseason. Maybe you get like a fourth or a fifth in 2027. I think the risk of that, of him not signing, is better, and the reward of getting the fourth or fifth is better than getting that 2027 sixth round pick. What do y'all think of the decision making around this? Let's start off with Darian.
They wanted him out of there. They wanted him out. This is a trade. This is a compensation for a player who you wanted gone. Simple and plain, right? Like, and this is a team in the Chargers who are down both tackles. If you want to try to have flexibility with Penning in that way, you've tried everything with Penning. You tried it all. You moved them to right tackle. I didn't even think that made sense when they did it because you had a guy you just drafted who was a right tackle in college. But you know what? We're going to give you a chance to do something new, Trevor. Oh, man, that didn't work. Okay, we're going back to the pool. We're going to get another tackle. We're going to move you to guard, Trevor. That didn't work. Like, there's only so many things that you can do with a player. And Kellen Moore wasn't here for all of it, but it all happened. And that's what matters at the end of the day. There's only so many things you can try. And when you exhaust all of the options, you realize nothing's working. That's what happens when you trade a 2027 sixth round pick to a team, or excuse me, you get a 2027 sixth round pick from a team that has a broken offensive line. I heard some people will say, man, you couldn't get more out of a desperate Chargers team. Well, no, because you're a desperate Saints team who just wanted to offload this guy. That's what it tells me. A sixth round pick in 2 years. Just give me anything.
Lance, what do you think?
I think that Darian's right. I also don't think, if we're comparing the Trevor Penning experience at left tackle to right tackle and guard, I would say he's been best at guard. He hasn't been awful at guard. He hasn't been great either. Yeah. One could argue that the guy that plays on the other side has been far worse this season than Trevor Penning, right? And so I think that the thing that probably saved Ruiz was the fact that he has played good ball from time to time, maybe not as much this season. And maybe it's his contract that teams didn't want to trade for. Um, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Trevor Penning because he's more than likely going to have to go to the Chargers and play tackle again. So that'll be interesting. But I do agree that they were ready to cut the Trevor Penning experience short, even though it's only a couple games short, plus the extra season that they did not, his fifth-year option that they didn't pick up. But it's definitely not great compensation. But again, what did you expect from a trade? You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. Like, anybody can say, they should have gotten this or that. But like, do you really expect them to get a 4th-round pick for Trevor Penning?
No, the thing was it was a compensatory pick if someone were to sign him in the offseason. Maybe you get something.
Correct.
I think that's the risk that I was talking about earlier. You get something. It's a risk, but there's just not much.
But you might not.
Play. Yeah, but you
also have to factor in how many free agents that your team signs, right?
Yeah.
And so a team that I think is going to have plenty of expiring contracts and/or guys gone. If we're signing unrestricted free agents, then there are no guarantees that you're going to get those compensatory picks. So it's like they're guaranteeing that they got something for him, which I guess is okay. It's not great compensation for sure, but it is something.
Here real quick, Dylan. They kind of planned for this. They safeguarded for this when they brought in Raiders, right? Like this is a move that was made. And in my opinion, I thought they were going to compete in training camp. That was my expectation when they signed Dylan Radins. It's not what ended up happening. They just went ahead and said, Trevor, you got it. He got hurt early. And then, Dylan ended up doing what he had to do. But this was a competition I thought we were going to see in training camp. And I didn't think it was one that Penning was for sure going to win. But you got a guy who has starting experience at guard as your backup. So I think that if there was anything they had safeguarded themselves against, it was losing Trevor Penning or Penning not working out. And now you have Radins, and I think that he's a guy who you probably could get on a cheap contract for next year if he plays well, and you have a lot of holes. You're going to need to have starters that you can get on cheap contracts. So I do like that deal.
Yeah. Do you I'll move this. I'll move to this. Are there any big players that did not get moved that you're surprised by? I'll start with Lance.
Yeah. I thought that based on where this team is, I thought they'd be way more active and getting compensation and getting either out of contracts or out of having to extend or sign contracts with guys. I would have thought would have been more of the goal. I mean, like the New York Jets have pressed the go button on their reset, and they're obviously public about it now. I don't know why we are still. I almost said a word that I wasn't supposed to say on this show, but we're almost, we're kitty footing around.
There you go. Shucking around.
And I just don't understand the logic behind it. So yes, to answer your question, I got a list of 3 guys, additional guys. Obviously, we talked about Olave, but you can't trade Shaheed and Olave in the same trade deadline. I guess you could, but you wouldn't. I thought that they would have explored trades for Pete Warner. I thought that they would have explored trades for Alontae Taylor, which I heard that there was, but they didn't receive compensation that they thought was worthy. And I also thought if it wasn't going to be Penning, that they would explore a trade for Cesar Ruiz. I don't know why they weren't more active. I know that's not Mickey's MO to trade away, starters, but it's, I don't know. I'm still perplexed at the fact that it's the only way to expedite the reset is to actually freaking reset.
There's been I was just gonna say there's been a name in that building that has refused to hit the reset button for years and years and years, and it has set the team back for years and years and years, and will continue to set their team back until something happens. But nothing's happening because I think it's the same decision maker that's been not wanting to do that, and I just don't see how you see the product on the field 1-7 and don't hit the reset button. You don't do anything. You don't make any effort that you can You know what you did? You played it like a team that thought they were going to win and didn't. So you shipped off a couple of names and got a couple of names back. You're like, oh man, shoot, we actually didn't make the playoffs this year. We're not going to do it. All right, well, let's get rid of these expiring contracts. You didn't actually reset or rebuild. It's just another thing of kicking the can down the road and not enacting on the rebuild, and it is frustrating to watch.
Yeah, the Jets did it right. The Jets did it right. And the Saints don't have players who are going to get that compensation back, but they can have their own version of it. They can trade guys like Alontae Taylor for a 4th-round pick instead of pushing for a 3rd. Like, I see the Colts come out, and I feel like they give a lot for Sauce. Now, you're not getting the 1st or 2 firsts or anything like that for Alontae, but I do think if they'll pay, they're obviously in the giving mood. And I think you could have got a lot from them, reportedly a 4th. I would have taken that for Alontae. I would have taken the 4th-round pick for Alontae. I think that you've been preparing the successors for Pete Werner. I would have tried to deal Pete Werner. I think I've been one that's harder on this than most. I would have tried to deal Carl Granderson. I would have tried to do that too. I would have tried to deal every player I could. You're not going to deal them all, but I would have tried to deal every player I could that I know is not going to be here 3 years from now, because I think that's about how far the Saints are from thinking about being anybody. So
can I say, other than the rookies that you drafted this year, there's nobody on this team that I think is 100% going to be here in 2 to 3 years.
Like, I can start, I'll start making like reasons, right? Like, okay, we just signed a player that a lot of people want to get out of here, Juwan. Okay, maybe just sign him to that deal. Like, he's probably not going to end up going anywhere because people might not want to take it. People might not want to take that deal. Okay, cool, fine. I'll back off. And I won't press so hard on that. But like I said, Alontae,
Juwan,
Granderson, Ruiz,
Juwan.
Like, I would have. I was trying so hard to not break. I'm trying, but no, I would get rid of all of these guys, man. And yes, I would even get rid of him too. I would.
Juwan.
I would be trying my best to get a 4th-round pick for Alontae.
Juwan.
Yeah, I got you. A 4th-round pick for Joy. I feel like I'm in WWE and they're doing the what chance. It's okay. I won't break. I watch enough wrestling to not break. Okay. This is a team that is years away, not a year away, maybe on the last year of this 3-year contract, this guy will be able to contribute. No, this team needs years of rebuild. And sometimes you need to just strip it down. Sometimes you need to take away an edge rusher that you value. Sometimes you have to toss a wide receiver you value. They did that. Kudos to them. Like, really good job on doing that. But you could have done that elsewhere as well. I think that there was just players on this team that I'm pointing to. Alontae, Granderson are my 2 that I really hammer in on. And we talked about at the beginning, I think Olave would have been a good case because you could have got a lot for him. You don't trade them both, but it's another one of the reasons that I would have traded Olave. I would have, but I think we have different visions on what we think of him.
I see that, like, I do see people will be like, oh man, the Jets they traded away Sauce, they traded away Quinn Williams, the Saints could have traded Olave. If you think that even if the Saints had the talents of Sauce Gardner and Quinn Williams, there's no part of me that feels like they're getting what the Jets got back just in that negotiated. Like, it just this never seemed like the thing. But still, I do think that they should have just definitely hit more of a rebuild button than trading away some guys that maybe don't want to be here, don't feel like they want to be here, don't have a future in New Orleans. This is not a team that, all right, we'll just patch the holes. We'll get a Shaheed placement in the offseason and we'll be right back. We'll be in the playoffs. We'll do all that. I feel like they're just so far away from competing, especially with the players that are not going to be here in a couple of years, like the DeMarios, the Cams, the Alvins. You don't know how long they're going to be contributing, and those are the guys that you're counting on to provide steady play at important positions. I don't know. It feels like there's some missed opportunity for even just getting something back for some players.
Well, even beyond the compensation part, if you trade a few more of those players, guess what? You get to see more of your young players play. Like, that to me is just as important as the compensation piece. Like, obviously you want to know what you're going to get back. What's your return for a player that could have been a good player for you or is an ascending player. Now you get a chance to not just see those young players, but for those young players to get reps and develop in a real game-like setting.
Yes.
Whereas now you hold on to those veteran players, and some of those younger guys aren't going to get to play as much as they would had they traded a few more of those guys.
Are we going to still do that 3-man rotation at linebacker? Are we still going to do the Warner, Stallbird, Stutzman? Like, it could have just been Stutzman and Stallbird. I think what Lance is bringing up is a great point. Get the value. Sometimes it's not trade value. Sometimes it's development value. And I feel like they've been preaching that a lot this year. This would have been another way to lean into the development of young players. And I think Stutzman and Stallbird are probably the greatest examples of that, but you didn't trade Warner. So,
All right. Well, before we get too deep into future conversations, there is a game this weekend.
Really?
Let's talk. You might be shocked to hear it. There is a game this weekend, and let's talk about our game picks and bold predictions for the last game before the bye week. The Carolina Panthers coming up next. All right. Closing out the show today, let's get into the last thing. It's game picks and bold predictions. Let's start off with Ross Jackson, who's not here, but did send me his predictions. Last week, he had the Audric Estime touchdown. Didn't happen. He told me he was thinking about doing the Audric Estime thing again until it happened, but he went a different way. Mm-hmm. He picked Panthers 23, Saints 17, and his bold prediction, which I love, is a Mason Tipton touchdown.
I wouldn't mind. I would not mind.
Because that just means you're getting, again, these younger players more involved as they should be once your season is already completely lost. All right. For us, let's start off with Lance. How are you feeling about this game? Give us your bold prediction as well.
Not great. And, I haven't had much reason to feel great about games here recently. Take away a starting offensive lineman, take away a really good receiver. And Carolina is not the Carolina that we have come to know the last couple of years. They're a well-coached football team. They are running the ball just as good as anybody else in the league right now. And we know we haven't been great on defense overall, but definitely not against the run. And if we are allowing Rico Dowdle to get 3 and 4 and 5 yards past the line of scrimmage before he's even contacted, he's going to run for 200 yards. So hopefully that doesn't happen. With all that, I'm going to take the Ross approach and go Saints 14, Carolina 27. I just need to see something here from Kellen, something from Tyler Shuck, and really, honestly, something from our defense. Can we get back to the New York Giants style defense where you get a bunch of turnovers, you're giving your offense short fields? Like, I feel like that's what it's going to take for this team to win games. It's not going to be a situation where we just show up and we're going to outscore guys. That's just not this team's MO. But I do have some positivity in my bold prediction. I'm going to say Tyler Shuck has both a passing and rushing touchdown in this game. So that'll be the only 14 points that I see us scoring. That. But I see both passing and rushing touchdown. And look, I want them to be competitive. I would love for them to win all the rest of their games. I just don't want them to show up and get embarrassed. Like I just think that there needs to be some form of growth shown, some semblance of a well-coached team. Hey, they're just outmatched. Like, I would love to see that. But I don't know. I'm open. We'll see.
Well, I think that Lance's bold prediction kind of lends itself to what we should all be looking for. Finally, an extended look at Tyler Shuck. I think that's probably the best thing I think it's a pretty safe assumption that the Saints are going to hold the ball for more than 16 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, right?
Hopefully.
At least you get to see more of the quarterback. I felt like we just didn't get to see enough of him last week. That was one of my biggest problems, and it was because of a lot of things, but it all came down to the time of possession.
I was just to that point real quick. I'll let you get back to it. But I was at the watch party. We were doing the Pelicans and the Saints game at the same time. There were multiple times where I looked over and I was like, "Wait, didn't the Saints just get the ball?" Like, yeah, it was the drive was already over and the game was over, and it was, and then we didn't even know who started the game with the ball at halftime because the first possession went by so quickly. They were like, "There's no way the Rams didn't start with the ball." Like it was a lot of that. It was a lot of mess and not a really fair look at Tyler Shough, I don't think. Again, although we said earlier, fair is out of the books, but I think that is something where you can look at least have the ball for 17 minutes.
Yeah, at least, right? I mean, I think not a high bar to set, not a high bar at all, but and I think it was like 5 possessions of 3 or less plays, one of which was the fumble. I think it was bad, but my bold prediction is that, and Devon Vele finally gets his career high in catches. I mean, that's 3. It's a starting point, in my opinion. Give him 3 catches and a touchdown. So he gets 3 or more catches and a touchdown in this week's game. My final score will be, I'm gonna go 16 to 27.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Hopefully
we make some all. I think that you're going to see a lot of field goal opportunities, though.
We're all kind of, I think, in the same area. John goes Panthers 26, Saints 17. He didn't give me a bold prediction, so
tell him to follow the rules.
John has never once followed the rules on one of my segments, so I'm not surprised that he didn't right now whenever he's not here. And I don't feel bad saying that while he's not here to defend himself. Let's get into let's see. My bold prediction. I'm gonna go Panthers 23, Saints 17. I think we're all kind of in the same area. I don't think this is gonna be a very fun game to watch, unfortunately. But I'll say this: how it could be fun. My bold prediction. We've said it a couple times. I think Chris Olave finally breaks the 100-yard mark, and it's mostly off of one pass from Tyler. I think they connect on a deep pass. It'd be great. It'd be great to see. It'd be great to I know he doesn't want to get hit right now. It'd be great to catch him in stride so he can just run the rest of the way to a touchdown. So he doesn't have to worry about that. But I think this is finally the week where we're going to see Shough get more. Well, we're not going to see it, but Shuck's going to get more work in practice with Olave. Mm-hmm. The Shaheed factor is not there. You talked about expanding the route tree. I think we finally see him connect on that big throw, and it's with Chris Olave. And then, that's something at least to hold on to, something to have fun with, something to look at, and something to smile about for this fan base. Because that could be your future, because you have to worry about them winning. They played the Titans and the Jets this year. Mm-hmm. Still, those are 2 teams that are just going to be hard to lose to. So it's going to be interesting, especially that Jets game. So you could play yourself out of getting that next quarterback, because I think that right now, to me, there's only one quarterback worth taking in the top. That's Fernando Mendoza. That's a conversation for another time. But I think it's very real where the Saints are looking. They're picking like 2 or 3. You don't have a quarterback that you love. And then I think in that scenario, you trade back, get as many picks as you can. Maybe you take a shot on another quarterback later. But I think there's a very real possibility that Tyler Shough is the quarterback going into next year. And I would love to see him get started right now on that connection with Olave, because as I said earlier, I think he gets extended, and I think that this is your quarterback and wide receiver, better or worse, at least next year.
When's the next time you think we pick the Saints to win a game?
2027.
Not even 2026. 27.
No, I think it'll be the Jets game. Or the Titans game. The Jets
come first.
Jets come
Miami comes before all of them.
No, they ain't beat Miami.
Nah.
They ain't be in Miami.
Is the Tennessee game is on the road, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And then the Jets game's at home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Week apart from each other. You have the Jets on the 21st of December in New Orleans, and then you have Tennessee in Nashville on the 28th.
I'm gonna put Ross on blast here. I do think that when we were talking earlier, he did call it a New Orleans suck fest, which was crazy to me. But
hey,
no.
Whoa.
It's crazy to me.
Whoa.
But it's gonna be
when he's not here.
That's a treat for those of you that are still listening to the last 5 minutes of this episode. You can tweet Ross about it, but that's a tweet. That's something out of Ross Jackson's words. Well, he's talking about the two teams being terrible. All right, so it's nothing bad. There's nothing bad with that statement. He's talking about the two teams being bad, and they're going to suck. It's gonna be a bad game. Let's go. What?
Hey, the Pels won a game. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
New Orleans, you're saved. Derek Queen is here, and he'll play 6 minutes off the bench, probably. If anything, no, it's good. It's good to see New Orleans win a game. But is there anything else with this Panthers game that you're going to be looking for after the trade deadline? What other takeaways do you want to see other than just Tyler Shuck playing well? Because obviously that's what you want to see out of every game from here on out.
I'll wait.
Go ahead.
In this specific game, right?
Yeah.
I would like to see Rico Dowdle not go absolutely ballistic if he's able to play. I know he's limited in practice, but I would like to see that. He's been able to rack up some yards, so that would be a good thing to see. And then I would also like to see the matchup between McMillan and McKinstry. I think that would be a fun matchup to watch, and McKinstry's in need of a bounce-back game. He really is. So we talk about players being part of the future. I think Kool-Aid is a part of the Saints' future, but in what part of the pecking order? Is he going to be cornerback 1 next year? Does he show enough to say that? Is he going to be CB2 next year? Is he competing with Quincy Riley next year? Is Riley sliding into the slot if Alante is gone? I think there's a lot of questions about who's going to be where in that secondary, and this is the beginning of that for McKinstry.
No.
Yeah.
Lance, do you have anything?
I like that. I'm going more to Kellen Moore. How does he respond after last week? How does he respond from an offensive play caller's perspective? How does he respond as a head coach from a head coach's perspective and his decision making and the things that he does or doesn't do in the game? Like, that's what I want to see. We talk all the time about growth and development of the players, but we don't talk nearly as much about a first-time head coach and the development that he needs to show, right? Mm-hmm. And this isn't like, oh, he needs to show this progress or else he's getting fired. Like, I think he's safe. I think he's got, at least 3 years here to try to work on this rebuild and get something going. So I'm not talking about it in terms of him not potentially keeping his job, but I do think from, an overall perspective of this team, it starts with the head coach. And so he's got to show, obviously, that he's got the chops, but he is somebody who can take the experiences that he has and now parlay that into something that turns out better the next time around. I'm not saying he needs to come out and call the perfect game and make all the right decisions as far as the game goes, but we do need to start seeing some progress from him as far as the decision making, and couple that with him calling an offense, and hopefully an offense that's able to maintain possession longer than that 16 minutes that we saw last week.
Just briefly, the spiral is happening, and I think Kellen needs to stop it, right? Like, we saw them get punched in the mouth versus Seattle, and then they came back against Buffalo, and I thought that was a great response. I feel like this team has been slowly unraveling against Chicago with all of the turnovers. Against Tampa, it just felt like things were, just putting Shuck in just felt, just do it, right? And in this last game, it just felt like everything is just going down, and I'm looking at the coach to be able to steady that ship. And it's not about accumulating more talent. It's just make me feel something less than just despair for 60 minutes.
13 points in the last 2 games combined. Not great, especially when one of those is at home. You hope to have at least a better a little bit better of a performance. That's not great. And Tyler, Kellen Moore is not at all in danger of getting fired after this season, but you do just want to see him get, improve and see some signs of improvement throughout. But until then, thank you for listening to the Saints Squad show. You can check out me, Darian, and Les on our socials for the latest, and you can tweet at Ross and at John. Can't wait to see you at the Suckfest.
Whoa.
No.
But until then, we'll be right back here on Sunday, right after the game, to talk about what happened, see if they won the game, see if they didn't. Probably didn't. But until then, you can check out Ross Jackson on Locked On Saints for the latest up-to-date news for everything New Orleans Saints. See y'all soon.